I'm a shared mobility architect. I don't design houses, I design transportation systems for our communities. And I believe we can create a much more powerful transportation system if we combine shared mobility with public transit and merge it into one large ecosystem. I believe this because I introduced car sharing in about a dozen cities across the world. It started with Car2Go in Canada, and since then have enabled organizations such as ReachNow to launch in the US, Evo in Vancouver, or eCar in Dubai. Car sharing is just one aspect of shared mobility. Essentially, the idea is that you become a member of a club, and once you're in it, you have access to different types of shared vehicles. Anything from an e-scooter to a bus to a car. I believe we can create this more powerful transportation system that is also more inclusive. If we do this, we will give everybody access to get wherever they want, whenever they want. Historically, this freedom of getting anywhere where you wanted meant you needed to own a car. But did you know that owning your own personal vehicle costs you over $500,000 in your lifetime? That is over $500,000 for something that you use less than 5%. The rest of the time, your car looks very pretty in a parking lot. The alternative to owning your car has been public transit. It works really great in large cities to move masses of people very efficiently, and it's a lot cheaper. If you live in London, New York, or Tokyo, the mass transit system will look like this. The closest metro stop is literally around the corner from your house. But almost half of the world's population actually live in much smaller communities, communities that have less than 500,000 people. These are cities like Halifax in Canada, Sacramento in the US, or Florence in Italy. And this is how the rapid transit system looks like there. So all of a sudden, the closest subway stop is a few kilometers away from you, and you have to catch a bus to get there. Now, the bus only runs once every hour, and on the weekend, it actually doesn't run at all. So if we merge public transit with shared mobility, these communities will benefit the most. I believe this because I introduced car sharing to cities of different sizes. Anything large like Dubai or Toronto to smaller communities like Portland, Seattle, or Vancouver. I live in Vancouver. We have access to over 3,000 car-sharing vehicles today. They bridge the first and last mile gap perfectly, essentially getting you from your home to the closest subway system, or in our case, the SkyTrain station. Now, 1/3 of Vancouver's population uses car-sharing. That's about 200,000 people with a membership. I want to go back to one fact. I said there's about 3,000 car-sharing vehicles in Vancouver. Now, you might wonder, that's on top of all the cars that we already had in the city? No, it's actually not. Even though the population has increased in Vancouver since 2011 and 2016, car ownership hasn't stayed the same. So we have a lot more people in Vancouver, a lot less cars, and a lot more mobility. But I don't just want you to take this from me personally. University of California in Berkeley has done a study of 5 cities that offer car-sharing services, and they looked at the impact on these communities. What they consistently found is that these cities have less cars, car-sharing members own less cars, and they drive less. In fact, they estimated how many cars were taken off the road, about 28,000 in those 5 cities. To give you a visual, if you park those 28,000 cars, you need about 88 football fields. That's a lot of space that you now all of a sudden have available to build a park or a playground or a new hospital. Car-share members also drive less. The average North American drives between 5,000 and 7,500 kilometers, miles. Car-share members drive consistently less, 6 to 16% less, in fact. And the main reason for that is they think twice if they really want to drive from their house 1 block down to pick up a carton of eggs. This also reduces greenhouse gases. So these communities have better air, less congestion, and a lot more livable space. So car sharing today works really great for these communities and for people like myself who live in Vancouver, young professional, no kids. But that's not everybody in our society. What about you? You may have a daughter that needs to go to play school once a day. You sign her up for ballet once a week. Or you might have an elderly mother who feels very lonely and wants to socialize with her friends at the community center. Well, the problem is neither one of them can drive. So you're stuck being the chauffeur all day long. Well, that's where the future will come in. Once we have self-driving electric technology more widely available, you could send your mother or your daughter in a small electric minibus. They get picked up right outside your home and they're dropped off at the destination. They could share the ride with their friends or their neighbors. It could even be a little minibus that turned into a coffee shop, and your mother could have a tea on the way there. The system will let you know that they arrived safely once they arrived. What I'm describing right now is actually already reality. Small, electric, autonomous minibus projects are popping up all across the globe, and they show up in really small communities. Communities like Sion in Switzerland. It's a town in the mountains with just over 30,000 inhabitants. It's beautiful. You should go and visit when you have a chance, because then you can also try this little electric, self-driving, so there's no driver in this bus, minibus. There's 2 of them that have been driving around since June 2016. They have transported about 30,000 people. And while a lot of people are a little bit skeptical getting on, because there is no driver, just somebody supervising the bus, they're actually really excited when they get off. People younger than 20 almost take it as natural once they tried it, and people older than 55 are equally excited and want to know when this comes to their community. I believe we can bring this type of mobility to other cities outside of Switzerland. I think it will happen when we start merging shared mobility with public transit into one large ecosystem. Because if you really think about it, shared mobility is just a really tiny version of public transit. It's a lot more nimble to get you wherever you need to get. It's also a lot less expensive, especially in less dense areas. It gives you access to different types of vehicles. So let's say you feel really energetic and it's a beautiful day, you could take a bike. You just broke your ankle, or it's a miserable rainy day, you book a seat on a bus. It also addresses the needs of all age groups. It addresses the mobility needs of people who cannot drive or can no longer drive. It frees up space in our communities for parks, hospitals, or a new residential tower if you need that. And it costs you personally less than half of what owning a car costs. So you have a lot more money available for whatever you need it. Now, to make this happen, the private and the public sector have to collaborate more. I've been working with private industry for the past 10 years. We're really good at innovating and pushing the envelope of what transportation is. Now we're also working with public transit, who always had a mandate to provide transportation to everyone, regardless of their income or where they live. And I think if we take the innovative power of the private industry and combine it with the social mandate of public transit, we can create a truly inclusive transportation system. And bringing the 2 parties together is one of the most rewarding challenges for me as a shared mobility architect. Thank you.